Super Bowl, and tiny babies. Imagine this. You're 9 months pregnant, sitting on the couch watching the Super Bowl, heart pounding, snacks everywhere. The stadium is roaring, the game is tight, and every play feels like life or death, at least for your team. Now, what if I told you that this giant "it's just a game" moment can actually show up in your baby's birth weight? You know, like on the scale in the hospital. That's exactly what economists Duncan, Mansour, and Rees went to find out. And yeah, the answer is kind of wild. Wait, how can football affect babies? So, how on earth does a football game mess with newborns? The key idea here is stress, pure emotional stress. When you're super invested in a game, your body doesn't know it's just sports. It reacts like something big and serious is happening. Heart rate goes up, stress hormones spike, and if you're pregnant, those hormones can reach the baby. The question is, does that tiny stress spike actually matter for birth weight? Why the Super Bowl is a perfect experiment. The Super Bowl is kind of a dream scenario for researchers. It's intense, emotional, and totally scheduled in advance. Unlike earthquakes or terrorist attacks, it doesn't break roads, shut hospitals, or cut off prenatal care. It just freaks people out emotionally. So economists can study stress without all the messy side effects. That makes it a super clean, natural experiment for prenatal stress. The data: millions of births, years of games. These researchers didn't just eyeball a couple of games, by the way. They used data from the National Vital Statistics System, covering births from 1969 all the way to 2004. They zoomed in on moms in the 3rd trimester whose local NFL team made it to the Super Bowl. Then they compared those births to births in other years and places where nothing Super Bowl level was going on. Same country, same seasons, but different emotional shock. What counts as exposure? Okay, so who counts as exposed here? Basically, if you lived in a team's fan area and were in your final trimester when your team played in the Super Bowl, you're in the treatment group. That means your pregnancy overlapped with all the pre-game hype, the game itself, and the emotional crash afterward. Mothers in similar places and times without a Super Bowl appearance serve as a kind of control group. So yes, your unborn baby is statistically watching the game with you. The main result? Small, but real. Here comes the big number. The researchers find that Super Bowl exposure is linked to about a 0.13 percentage point increase in the probability of low birth weight. That might sound tiny, but it's roughly a 1.8% increase relative to the baseline rate. When they zoom in on fan areas whose team actually made it, and especially when the team won, the effect gets bigger. In other words, the more emotionally invested you are, the more the stress shows up in the data. Wins, losses, and upsets. Now here's where it gets spicy. Winning the Super Bowl is actually associated with a larger bump in low birth weight than just playing in it. And surprise wins, where your team was not supposed to win, produce even stronger effects. That fits a classic stress story. Intense emotional shocks, even positive ones, still put pressure on the body. Your team wins, the city goes wild, but your baby's birth weight quietly takes the hit. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, maybe the fans just smoke and drink more. Fair question. The authors look at maternal smoking and alcohol use to see if behavior changed around Super Bowl exposure. They do find some patterns, but those changes don't fully explain the birth weight results. The story points more toward acute emotional stress, not just people partying harder. Stress biology in 1 minute. So what does stress actually do during pregnancy? When a pregnant person is stressed, hormones like cortisol and adrenaline increase and can cross the placenta. In late pregnancy, that can influence blood flow and the baby's growth environment. Over time, enough stress can slightly reduce birth weight or raise the odds of being born small. We're not talking about huge, dramatic effects. We're talking about subtle shifts that become visible when you look at millions of births. The bigger literature, not just football. This study doesn't stand alone. Other research has shown that earthquakes, wars, and violent conflict can lower birth weight and increase complications. The twist here is that the Super Bowl involves no physical danger, just emotional roller coasters. So if even a game can move the needle, you can imagine what real disasters do. That makes this result feel both a bit funny and a bit scary. Should pregnant people avoid the Super Bowl? So, should we just tell pregnant fans to switch off the TV? Not exactly. The effect on any individual baby is tiny. Your child is not doomed because you watched a tight playoff game. The real point is to show how sensitive fetal development can be to stress. It's more about understanding the hidden biology than banning football. Why are economists even in this story? Because birth weight isn't just a medical number. It predicts future health, education, and earnings. Lower birth weight is linked to slightly higher risks of chronic illness and lower human capital later in life. So when economists see that stress nudges birth weight down, they think about the long-run costs to society, not just to one family. Small shifts times millions of people can add up. Inequality and who is most affected. The study also explores whether some groups are more affected than others. There is evidence in related research that lower educated or more disadvantaged mothers may be more vulnerable to stress shocks. That raises an uncomfortable point. Even fun national events may widen tiny gaps in early life health. Stress is not evenly distributed, and neither are its consequences. The emotional punchline. Here's the punchline in plain English. For most people, the Super Bowl is wings, ads, and yelling at the TV. For a small number of late-term pregnancies, it's also a measurable stress shock that slightly nudges down birth weight. Touchdown celebrations in February can, very quietly, show up as grams lost on a hospital scale months later. That's both bizarre and kind of profound. It's just a game, or is it? So yeah, the study is literally titled, "It's just a game." But the data says, not quite. Super Bowl Sundays leave a tiny fingerprint on some newborns' health. It doesn't mean you should live in fear of sports. It means we should take stress seriously, even when it's coming from things we call fun. If you like stories where economics sneaks into real life in weird ways, stick around, subscribe, and maybe watch the next big game with just a little extra empathy for the moms in the room.